Well, it's a beautiful morning here at Flock, and we have a very exciting project today, and that is completing the stone pathway behind me. So the guys are going to come and actually start on that today. They're some of the same guys that actually did our gazebo area with the stone raised bed. So we're really excited because they do such quality work. That's O'Brien Masonry here, and we just absolutely adore them. And something that we had behind here when we arrived were these pavers. And you know what, the area was maybe just too small because some of the plants started to grow into the area, and like especially that white pine behind me, it started to push out, and then we extended the garden bed and needed more of a pathway essentially. And we didn't really like the look of the pavers. We've kept them for other projects, of course, but what we were really envisioning is these large flat slabs of stone. I mean, really large ones that are very difficult to carry. So it takes a few boys to actually pick them all up. Anyway, so it's been really lovely to see those stones finally get to use because they've been on our driveway for who knows how long. But we're going to go with that with like tight lines between them, but they're not uniform stones. So it takes a little bit of artistry and imagination to put them together. I will probably plant a bit more time that is more for pavers and walking paths in between here and there. And the fun aspect that I'm going to include in this pathway behind me is taking some of my fossil collection and embedding them into the stones. And I think that will be a really fun discovery mechanism for folks, especially children who like come by and they, you could say, hey, find the 15 fossils or whatnot. It'll be really fun. So. And I kind of got that inspiration because it was in an area in Colombia, in Villa de Leyva, that I had traveled. And they have so many fossils in their rocks that the whole ground was paved with fossils, and some of the buildings were made with fossils. And it was so beautiful and such an inspiration. Unfortunately, people who have gone there have now stolen a lot of those fossils. So it's a shame too, because you could see what the potential and the beauty was and how they had such prolific amounts of fossils that they ended up just building buildings with them and building paths with them. And it was such a beautiful sense of discovery and such a nice detail. So we want to be able to capture some of those details in the pathway behind us. We have some small informal pathways as well. And the creases between the stones aren't going to be so tight there. They'll be more like stepping stones, maybe 4 inches in between. But what I'd like to do today is maybe just show you what the base of a good foundation looks like, because as Dave O'Brien, who runs the masonry business, says, it's all about the base. You have to have a really nice, strong foundation and firm base before you actually lay your stones. Because if you don't, then the stones are going to basically shift over time. And you think about it, we're in 4 seasons. You have rain and ice, and sometimes that ice will upheave some stones as well. So you got to really lock them in. So I'll take you through some of that principle here, and we'll just see how the whole thing comes together. Okay, so here's what we're looking at right now. So this is number 2 crusher run. That's what the rock is called. And it's kind of like this rock embedded with rock dust. And once it gets wet, it starts to harden up, almost like concrete. So what you do is you actually layer this on the ground on what you want your foundation to be. So we actually dug down a little bit until we hit kind of a bit more like clay hard pan. And then we added this crusher run on the top, and then you have to tamp it down. And however you want to tamp it down, you could do it with a hand tamper, which is a lot of hard work if the paths are going to be relatively large. Or you could get a machine that basically tamps it down for you, and then you go across it multiple times. And you use a level in order to level out the land, and because you don't want any low spots, because if you have low spots, then water is going to sit there, or if you want to make ADA compliant walkways, then you want to make sure that it's wide enough and it doesn't have any pits and ridges. So this is one of our informal paths that are going to go through. The line in the middle is essentially more of the center point or the center line. So that's more or less how you do it. And then you add your stone to the top of this. And then you're going to be adding, you may have to dig down into this depending on where you want the stone to line up, because if you're using a lot of irregular stones, and we are, these irregular stones are all different widths. So it makes it a bit more challenging because something might be 2.5 inches and something might be like 1/2 inch or 1 inch. Some things might be 3 inches. So you're constantly cutting the stones, but embracing the fact that they all are unique and that you have to take the craftsmanship of the person who's doing the stonemasonry to be able to lay them out in such a way that makes a lot of sense. It makes it a little harder, but it also makes it a bit more interesting as well. So in some cases, you may have to dig down a bit deeper if the stone is thicker. And then after that, you put either stone dust or sand in between to lock the stones in. So let me show you that. All right, so this is an example of some of the stone dust, and it's also in the crusher run, but this is basically what makes it very sticky, and it really locks everything into place. It almost acts like a mortar, I suppose. And you could also use sand, because sand is such a fine grain. And I'll show you a bit more of like what it looks like when you lock it in. So they'll probably go over this a bit more with the stone dust, but you could see how this is really aligned and locked in. Like, it'll be hard to kind of get my fingers under there. You'll be able to do it, but hopefully nobody's going to be prying out your walkway in that kind of manner. But this is an example of how things fit right in. And it might be difficult to find a stone. You could find a stone exactly like this that fits into that space, but sometimes they have to chisel the stone and cut the stone in order to be able to fit it in that kind of manner. All right, guys, so I wanted to show you how the path turned out, and we are so thrilled. The O'Brien Masonry did such an excellent job. I was not here when they finished, but oh my goodness, I am so pleased, so is Sonder. And you could just see that they, worked the stones. They basically either found the right shape or they cut the stone to fit within and puzzle it together. And it just shows so much artistry. And then I convinced them after a while to put my fossil collection in the footpath. So we're gonna call this like fossil footpath. And at first they were like, oh, you don't want to put your fossils in there, and because they might get ruined. And I get that, but you know, they're sitting in a box. I'd rather folks actually be able to see the fossils, which I think are really cool. And it's just such a little delight when you're walking down the footpath. And for so long we had the pavers here. We took the pavers out, I think this time last year, actually, probably 12 or 13 months ago. And we were walking on like uneven terrain and everything, and bam, come back, see the beautiful video of them putting it together, and you have this great thoroughfare. Now it really leads your eye into the home and through the gardens. So you'll see that this one is quite wide, and that's what I mean by the main thoroughfare. And then here is like a little sneaky path. So we call these sneaky paths because they're just like small, more informal paths between the gardens. And then you have hit the main thoroughfare here again, leading to the house and leading to the orchard. And then you have this sneaky path right here, which gets you between the gardens. And then here as well, we have some thyme planted in. I'll talk about that afterwards, but this is like thyme that's perfect for pavers. So it'll start to slowly grow out and creep among the stones, and they could handle a little bit of foot traffic as well. So my goodness, we are so pleased with how this turned out. O'Brien Masonry did such a stand-up job, and we're very excited to have a path that we could be walking on for a while now.
I know that there is nothing stopping me. No physical presence that I can't see. Oh, there's nothing in my way. 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 No physical presence that I can't see. Oh, there's nothing in my way.